Good afternoon. I'm Teresa Wall-Cyb. I am teaching the Judicial Externship course this semester at Golden Gate. And I'm sure all of you know Susanne Aronowitz, our Associate Dean of Law Career Services and also Alumni Relations here at school. So today what we're going to do is tell you more about what a judicial externship is and then what you can do to grab these opportunities and make the most of this experience for your law school experience and your career. So I'm going to start off with just our handouts that we have here. And the first one is your blue sheet. And this just gives you an overview of the different kinds of local courts here that offer externships. There are many more, but just going left to right, we have our federal courts. And of course, the U.S. Supreme Court is neither local nor do they take externs, but just to keep the structure of the courts intact there. Moving down, we have the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. That's down in the Civic Center. And within the Court of Appeals, you have different kinds of externship opportunities, both with a judge in chambers and also with the Office of Staff Attorneys. And I'll be talking a little bit more about the distinction there. And then with our U.S. District Courts, we are very fortunate in the Bay Area. We have the Northern District Courts offices or courthouses in San Francisco, in Oakland, and in San Jose. So there are lots of good opportunities there. And then we even have some specialized courts like the U.S. Bankruptcy Court. Moving to state judicial courts, we have the California Supreme Court right in the Civic Center. San Francisco, also the 1st District Court of Appeals is in San Francisco. The 6th District Court of Appeals is in San Jose. And then we have all of our superior courts. Just going to the Bay Area itself, there's Santa Clara County, there is San Francisco County, Alameda County, over on and on, San Mateo County. So you guys have lots of good opportunities here, right here in the Bay Area, but every county here is going to have its superior court, and you can look outside the Bay Area as well. We also have administrative courts. So this is going to be but still administrative courts like the Office of Administrative Law Judges at the U.S. Department of Labor. They have courthouses, they have administrative law judges, they have law clerks, and they have externs. So there's another opportunity there. Other places like the Executive Office of Immigration Review. Say that one 5 times fast. And then, of course, for our state administrative courts, we have the State Bar Court, also in San Francisco. Those hear grievances for attorney discipline. So those can be very interesting cases, what not to do as a lawyer. And then the Office of Administrative Hearings, and that's going to go over disciplinary and grievance actions for lots of different state agencies. So for example, if anyone is interested in education law, they tend to hear those kinds of cases, special education cases, and many, many others. So quite a diversity of experiences here right in the Bay Area, but also outwards as well. So you have lots of good opportunities. Law Career Services has also developed this, looking at the green sheet, the essential information. That's going to give you some nuts and bolts on what you need to earn credit for your externship with the courts. And I will hit some of those points in my presentation as well. But front and back, I'll give you a good how-to, and then we'll also walk you through it. It's also very helpful on how to find and secure placements. So you're going to be working under your own initiative for a lot of this. Some of the judges do post job announcements. You can find them on LCS online and also some court websites that Suzanne's going to go through. But a majority of them don't. So you're going to have to do the legwork in finding your placement, reaching out to the judge or the chambers, and getting the externship. So we'll tell you more about that. And the final handout here is what the application looks like. To earn credit with the university, you not only need to secure your placement, you also need to enroll in a course here. So you'll be needing to fill out that judicial application to enroll in the course. You can find that from the registrar's website. Is that right, Susanne? Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. So that's just our handouts. I'm going to switch over. All right. Oh, wrong button. I wanted to start out by just defining externship for you. I'm sure you hear it bandied about clerkships, externships, apprenticeships. What's the difference? What's the meaning of all of this? Well, clerkship, for example, when you're talking about court clerks, you're talking about lawyers, people who have already gone through law school, some of whom have passed the bar, some have not yet, and they are working on staff for a judge or in an office of staff attorneys. Now, an externship is generally just going to mean any sort of experience or experiential learning type of situation. So learning by doing, a field placement. And within the university context, we use externship specifically, well, not so, you can either have an externship for credit or not. So it's your choice. If you would like to do your externship for credit, however, there are some requirements to that. So is there anyone here who's a 1L? Okay. So for your 1L year, for example, you could not apply for an externship for credit. Reason being is because you need to have completed 40 units already. Also, you need to have either completed evidence or be concurrently enrolled in evidence. So again, for a 1L, you can't take a judicial externship for credit. You could, however, still extern for the courts. So within the courts, people getting credit for their externships, people just volunteering there are still going to be called externs. But the distinction within the university is whether you are enrolling for credit or not. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So for the most part, you're not going to get paid for an externship. There's a very narrow exception to this, really. And it tends to be, if you go through, there's a scholarship program through the ABA. And the program is called the Judicial Intern Opportunity Program. So again, we've got some different terms. But if you go on the ABA website and look up JIOP, the GIOP program, that's going to be one of those narrow exceptions where you might be able to get a scholarship, a little stipend for your externship at the court. So you have a choice. You can either do your judicial externship for credit or not. So you can be volunteering with the court. And many students do that. In fact, my first externship here, I am a GGU alum. I did 3 judicial externships and then later became a research attorney in both the federal and the state court. My first one was, of course, as an apprenticeship. So that one I did not take credit, and then I got credit for a following one. So I went over these a bit before. You need to have 40 units. You need to have concurrent enrollment in evidence or have already taken it. There is also a GPA requirement. To work in the state courts, you need to have at least a 2.5 GPA. For our appellate and our federal courts, you need to have a 2.75 or above. All right. Another element of this externship program within Golden Gate is we have a seminar component to the externship. Now you might be thinking, well, the externship is supposed to be this experiential learning or learning by doing where you are in a court placement. Why am I still in a classroom? Well, the seminars serve 2 purposes. The first is to give you some good building blocks, some foundations so you can really thrive in your placement. So we do things like we have a research librarian come in and give some advanced legal writing, advanced legal research techniques. We also have a writing component to the class. So my students do regular journals of their experience in the courtroom, and I read over those journals. I'm not only looking simply for whether they're growing and learning and what they're getting out of it, but because writing for the court is a heavy writing responsibility, I'm also looking at, well, are they writing in the passive voice or the active voice? And I'm going to flag that because as an advocate, you may have learned already in your writing and research classes that passive voice sometimes works well. You can take the emphasis off of a fact that you might not like so well. Well, when you write for the court, it's objective. So you need to be writing in the active voice. And so I'm going to be working with students also on their writing skills. So the seminar is going to give you some building blocks, some good tips on how to succeed, stronger writing, stronger research. And then in your field placement, in your judicial externship, you're going to be doing it. You're going to be living it. The other purpose of these seminars is to build community. I'm sure you guys have heard over and over by now that your reputation is very important within the legal community. Don't do anything to tarnish that reputation. Well, yes, the legal community tends to be a small world. However, it's also good to have that tight-knit group of people you can rely on, even in this small world. And it is my hope in teaching these seminar classes that students learn to rely on each other, reach out to the university, get the support they need, really advocate for themselves to have the best experience they could possibly have as a judicial extern. So that is why there's a seminar element as well. HLP students, is anyone here HLP? No? Okay, well then, just for the purpose of the video portion, HLP students, there's one more requirement or limitation on the externship, and that is for the first apprenticeship, you can't take it for credit. And then, but if you want to do it again, you can. All right. So what does it mean when you're externing for the court? We've got some nuts and bolts here about what a seminar would look like. Well, what do judges need student externs for? You might be surprised to learn that judges rely on externs quite a bit, especially now with such budget cuts in the state. Judges' staffs have been whittled down to nearly nothing, and they rely on externs for doing legal research, analysis, giving their perspective on the law, on situations, on facts, how they see it. So externs are going to be doing that legal research, and then they're going to be writing nearly every day on what they're learning, either in the form of a bench memo, which is going to be telling the judge everything in IRAC. So this is the issue you've asked me to look at. Here's the rule that I found in reading the courts, reading the cases, reading the statutes. Here's my analysis, and this is going to be the conclusion and recommendation I make on this particular issue. Judges could also rely on students to draft their opinions and their orders for them, which I found as an extern a real thrill. So in my first externships, I was given rather discrete issues. So read the law, the judge would say, read the law and find out what the limitations are for chemical testing for being pulled over on DUI, for example. Something small like that, where it's a discrete statute, you look at the statute, you tell them what it says. On the other side of that, after I had done a few externships, I was able to draft an entire decision on a Sarbanes-Oxley case. So Sarbanes-Oxley was at that point a new law on accounting fraud. So a really new area of law for everyone, especially for me as a law student, and I was able to draft the entire decision which the judge signed and later became a body of law for what the administrative law judges use. So as an extern, you really can have a big impact on the law, on the way that the judge is interpreting it. So it can be quite a thrill. Judges may ask for extern perspectives on an issue or proceeding. I'll give you another example. In my first externship, I worked for a magistrate judge at the United States District Court, Northern District. And he had a case where two parties were disputing an insurance issue. He called me in before a settlement conference and said, "What do you think about this?" I told him what I thought about that. He said, "Great, I'm going to pull the parties in, and now I want you to tell them what you just told me." So there I was, as a second-year law student, talking to the parties about why I thought one side didn't quite have two legs to stand on. So it can be a really rich, really big experience. You get the judge's ear, but you can also be having these terrific experiences with parties, with litigators, figuring out how the process works. So in addition to doing the heavy lifting sometimes with research and writing, you also have opportunities to observe other court proceedings. Being at the U.S. District Court, so many trials are going on that are just fascinating and in the news, also at the state court level, especially in San Francisco. You can be sitting in on different proceedings. You talk to your judge. If you don't have a ton of work to do that day, you go sit in and hear another case. So you can really get that first-hand view of what's going on in law. Gives you an opportunity to network. In these types of placements, don't expect really cushy office environments. You're probably going to be in a room with as many as 5, 6 other people. Sometimes you're even at one big table in the law library working together as externs. So it's not very cushy, but you do get the opportunity to meet a lot of different students, not only at Golden Gate, but at all different Bay Area schools. It's a great way to meet other students. It's a great way to meet other judges, staff attorneys, get to know what they do, get to make some good contacts. You can also give oral presentation. Some of the judges, for example, I have students right now whose judge likes to get the externs together, give them an issue, and then have them do basically a mock trial. So he plays it out with the externs, and then that's one way that helps him get a perspective on an issue, and also gives the externs an opportunity to learn. So you can expect, and some judges will ask for oral presentation. So this mirrors the handout that you got. Just wanted to go over again that there are so many great opportunities right here in the Bay Area. But for those of you who are perhaps interested in going outside the Bay Area for your externship, there are plenty of opportunities, and Susanne and the other staff at Law Career Services can certainly help you with that. All right. So what is the day-to-day like? What is the experience like? So for federal judicial externships, it's going to be different than if you're working in state, and it's going to be different if you're going to be with an administrative law judge. What you'll be looking at for the most part is going to be in-depth research and writing. So instead of just getting a pithy issue, like I mentioned before, something on a DUI, you might be getting, all right, here's a summary judgment motion, and it's quite detailed, and you can have a couple of weeks to look over all of the parties' papers, look over exhibits, and then write out a long bench memo. So it's going to be less of a time crunch for the most part in the federal courts. Law clerks tend to supervise the externs. So what that means is oftentimes the federal judges are not interacting with our externs as much as if perhaps they were in state court. Usually the main contact is going to be an attorney supervisor who works full-time for the judge, or perhaps part-time. There are exceptions to this. One of our judges who teaches here at Golden Gate University, Judge Maria Elena James, who is a magistrate judge with the United States District Court, has a lot of interaction with her externs. She is in there all the time, asking them questions, giving them feedback. That is not always true. With my 2 externships at the U.S. District Court, I almost always went through the staff attorney. That was my supervisor. The federal courts tend to have good experience with externs. So there's a good program in place, good orientation in place. Externs tend to be, the learning curve there, although still steep, they tend to get good support throughout because there's already a rubric in place with how to support externs. The pace tends to be pretty steady, so you're not going to be crushed, but you still need to produce good work in a timely way. Assignments tend to be single issue. There's a chance for both criminal and civil. So for those of you who are perhaps interested in both or not quite sure, don't know whether I want to do civil side or criminal side, maybe I could do, maybe within my career I can find space for both. Externing for the federal courts can give you a taste of both because the calendar changes. So 1 month might be criminal, and then the next month is going to be civil. In fact, I know that's how they do it in San Francisco. They rotate, so the judge will have a criminal calendar for 1 month and then have civil for a few, and then criminal again. So you can be lucky to see both kinds of cases. Types of judges at the federal courts. So you have magistrate judges and Article III judges, both at the district courts. Does anyone know the difference? Okay. Work-wise, our magistrate judges and Article III judges can do basically the same thing. They can have the same workload. The difference is our Article III judges are nominated by the President, and then they are approved by Congress, and they have a lifetime term. So for the magistrate judges, they are instead chosen by the judges at the particular court, and they have an 8-year term. Also, to hear trial there are certain proceedings, and particularly trials at the U.S. District Court, where the parties would have to stipulate to, or they would have to agree to a magistrate judge taking the trial. Otherwise, our Article 3 judges can have the trials from start to finish. What this means in terms of judicial economy for the way it plays out at the courts is that most of the time the Article 3 judges are going to be the ones who get the trials. And a lot of the time the magistrate judges are going to get the pre-trial type of work. They also do a lot of the settlements. Again, with Judge Maria Elena James, she's known as being quite a settlement guru. So a lot of the settlements are going to go through the magistrate judges. If ADR is something that you're interested in, if you want to get more experience with that settlement process, a magistrate judge is probably going to be a good fit for you. If, on the other hand, you are gunning for trial work, you think that's exactly where you want to be, well then perhaps you would like to apply to the Article 3 judges. We also have our appellate judges, so we're talking on the federal side, our Ninth Circuit judge. Now, on that blue handout, you can see there's that Office of Staff Attorneys as well as chambers. What's the difference? If you work in chambers for a judge, you are basically going, for a Ninth Circuit judge, you're going to see cases from start to finish for the most part. So as soon as it's approved that the judge is going to hear this case, then you're going to be able to see the entire process of how the judge is going to be dealing with it. On the other hand, the Ninth Circuit has an Office of Staff Attorneys, and this has been likened to like a law firm within the courts. These are a cadre of attorneys who can either just be picked by some of the Ninth Circuit judges if they need more hands on a particular project. But for the most part, what they do is review cases to see, and they recommend whether the Ninth Circuit judges should hear them in the first place. An externship with the Office of Staff Attorneys at the Ninth Circuit is going to have the opportunities to see these petitions to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal and be able to make that review of, all right, here's what happened in state court, this is what the particular issue is, and then I recommend that the panel of appellate judges either grant or deny review of this case. There is good opportunity for oral presentation in these kinds of externships because that is precisely what those staff attorneys have to do. They make up all of these memos on which cases should be granted review or denied review, and then they present it to a panel of judges. And externs can have the opportunity to do that as well. So that's a huge opportunity. Also, we have, like I mentioned before, bankruptcy, the U.S. Bankruptcy Court here in San Francisco. And some might think, well, I don't really see myself going into bankruptcy law. Well, you can still get a great opportunity even if you're not sure that particular niche is for you, because many of these bankruptcy cases are based in other areas of law, some kind of white-collar crime. Usually something has happened that has violated some sort of regulation in dealing with bankruptcy type. Well, not always, but there are often situations where regulations are also involved. Things like intellectual property cases can be the basis of a bankruptcy type of proceeding. Okay, shifting gears a little bit. So we mentioned the pace and the environment in federal court. It can really be night and day for a state court judicial externship. So there's also a lot of research and writing. You can expect to be doing that work every single day. But the assignments are going to be pithier. Reason being, it's a much quicker pace there. So the judges just need a discrete issue. Again, tell me what the law says on DUI, and I need it by the end of the day today. Not in 2 weeks, at the end of the day. So what you're doing is going straight to that statute, reading the law, reading those annotations, going to your practice guides, getting the main cases, synthesizing them, and giving the judge what he or she needs to know. All right, so that would be an example of what a bench memo does and how you would be serving the state courts. You're more likely in this environment to be supervised by a particular judge. So that's great. You really can have the judge's ear, the judge's access. Like I said, those the externs that I have right now who are doing the mock trial type assignments for their judge. The other beautiful thing about state court is how specialized nearly all of the assignments are. So if you have an interest in how the law affects veterans, there's a veterans court. If you want to be part of the justice system that serves mental health patients, you can be part of the behavioral court. The drug court, there's family court, there's law in motion, which is going to be all pretrial type stuff. Then of course we have our judges who do trials, criminal trials, felony trials, the misdemeanors. And then on the civil side, there are specializations there too, people doing just asbestos cases, which can be quite complex, and with a rather experienced bar. So you'd be able to see attorneys who are at the top of their game for what they do. There's also the complex litigation department within superior courts frequently, and these tend to be the class action type cases. So more involved, complex, difficult, longer cases. So you have such a slew. It's like no matter what area of law you're interested in, there's usually a court for that. So you need to ask yourself, is there something that's lighting you up right now? Is there a particular place? Are you interested in labor law? Well, great, there's the U.S. Department of Labor. Are you interested in energy issues? There's an administrative court there with the Public Utilities Commission. There are so many things you could do. So take the opportunity to figure out what you'd like to learn about, and then you can have this hands-on experience with work. I wanted to touch quickly on commissioners before I move on. There are very few of them now. So with state budget cuts, most of our counties have lost all or a vast majority of our commissioners. San Francisco Superior right now has just one, Commissioner Whiteman, and she does child support. That is her job. So if family court child support is your thing, there's a commissioner who does just that. But those are going to be harder to come by, externing or working with the commissioner, just simply because there are fewer of them. That's the way it's going. Also, of course, there are appellate judges within the state courts. And one of our students right now is externing for the California Court of Appeals, First District right here in San Francisco, and having a great experience. She's writing a decision right now, so she's got the whole ball of wax. Okay. Administrative courts. Now, I externed in for two magistrate judges in the district courts. I also externed for the U.S. Department of Labor, and like I said, worked on that Sarbanes-Oxley case. Loved it. Not only is it Sarbanes-Oxley, it's also anything, any sort of employment or labor grievances that would fall under the FAA, so federal, all of the airline type of laws. There were trucking laws, there were longshore laws, there were so many different ways to be dealing with labor and employment issues for different kinds of areas of life. But for the most part, administrative courts are going to be highly specialized. So like I said, the Public Utilities Commission is going to be dealing with energy type of cases. Labor law, of course, there's the NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, that also has administrative law judges. So these proceedings are going to be governed by administrative law. And some of you might be thinking, well, I haven't had a single class in labor law. I've never taken a class on how to use the regulations or administrative law. Maybe I wouldn't be qualified for this. That's not true. I did not have a single class in administrative law when I stepped into this position. And it worked out so well for me that they hired me on right out of law school to serve as one of the research attorneys. So if you can read a statute, if you've got those basic building blocks, but this is how I do legal research, this is how I can analyze an issue and present it concisely, succinctly, clearly to a judge, you can do this kind of thing. You just need to find what interests you and then pursue it. So the assignments are going to vary, of course, depending on the type of law, depending how experienced the office is with externs. With some of these administrative courts, they might not be as well tuned with how to use judicial externs, which actually might work in your favor. You might be able to ask for more. Why not? Again, there's the Executive Office of Immigration Review for those of you who have an interest in immigration, the State Bar Court. These are disciplinary actions against attorneys. And then the Office of Administrative Hearings. Again, if education is your thing, if some other state agency, if there's a particular burning need in you to be serving some part of our society, there's usually a court for that. So I'm just going to end my spiel right now with encouraging you to take the initiative to find the placement you want. Suzanne's going to go over more nuts and bolts on where to find these great opportunities and how to reach out to these judges. But it's on you to figure out what kind of experience you want to have. So knowing that these aren't always going to be cushy situations, true, but is that okay with you? Do you want to be a litigator? Are you the kind of person who needs to be back and forth and talking to a lot of people all the time? Well, these judicial externships, sure, you might be able to banter a bit with your fellow externs, but for the most part, you're in a small windowless office doing research and writing. You need to be okay with that. Or if not, if it's a development area and you realize that this is something that I really need to develop. So ask yourself what you want to get out of it. Do you want to learn more about criminal law? Do you want to learn more about what it means in juvenile dependency? Do you want to have the feel for different courthouses? Courthouses are so vastly different. If you go over to the juvenile courts up near Twin Peaks, you're going to have a much different experience there with, you know, the very, very old doors and the paint peeling off the seats than you would have in, let's say, you know, the U.S. District Court of Appeals or even San Francisco Superior. And even from San Francisco Superior, the civil courthouse to the Hall of Justice. In the Hall of Justice, there are secure courtrooms with bulletproof glass. You know, so it's very, very different. Figure out what your interest is, where you think you can serve and help the judge. And then, yeah, keep in mind that if you don't want to stay in the Bay Area, that Suzanne and others at LCS can help you find the best fit. Let's have it.
I'm going to echo this. I've worked with our externs for many, many years. And if you want to be an advocate, this is great training because you may not be serving as an advocate officially in this role, but you are seeing what's effective. You will see how all the attorneys handle themselves. You'll see what kind of arguments work with the judge, what kind of tactics and techniques and presentation styles are effective with the judge, and what techniques are perhaps less effective. And you'll see that pretty readily. And so it's a great way to see some of the best lawyering you will ever see and probably some of the worst lawyering you will ever see, which can actually boost your self-esteem a little bit because you'll realize as a 2L you would do a much better job than that seasoned attorney. So it's a great experience, and to really get the ear of a judge and to get that experience, which once you graduate will be so difficult to get. So I really encourage you to try to make this happen if it fits in during your time in law school. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual process for applying to externships, some of the resources that we offer, and some of the support that we can provide at Law Career Services. Those of you who are considering an externship for next semester, now is the time to apply, and we'll need to move pretty quickly. So I'm going to show you a few resources today. I encourage you to start digging into this, maybe meet with me or somebody at LCS soon so that we can get your materials together. There are slightly different processes for the different courts, but by and large you will need to have, I don't know if this is later, certain, did we talk about the documents?
Nope.
Okay, so you'll need 5 types of documents, and so you want to start preparing those right away. You'll need a resume, you'll need cover letters for each of the different opportunities you're seeking. You will need a writing sample, you'll need a reference list, and you'll need a transcript. And we have handouts on LCS Online to guide you through how to prepare those documents. So if it's been a while or you've never prepared them before, that's a good place to look, and you should come in and start meeting with us. The cover letter in particular is a bit different because we'll talk about that in a bit. You need to appeal to a judge in a slightly different way than if you were appealing to them based on their ideology or their the mission of their organization. Judges are neutral, so you can't really appeal to them in terms of their personal beliefs. But in any event, we want you to start looking. So the first place to start looking is on LCS Online. And you can take a look in the job listings, and I'll actually show you where to find those. So if you're on LCS Online, you can take a look in our job listings, and you'll see that occasionally we have job listings from judges, and we have some right now. So we can take a look. If you look over here where it says practice areas, if you see, we have a externship, judicial externship, and you can search just for those opportunities that have that tag to it, and it says no records found. That is peculiar because I know we have some. So, and anyway, you can scroll through and you'll see we get a couple. So some judges and some courts are very good about contacting us and saying, we have this opportunity, please share it with your students. And so this is where we would share it. But not every judge will do that, and frankly, most of them will not, because they don't need to. Every semester, every judge at federal court gets applications, in their inbox, so they don't need to advertise. So you do want to take the initiative. If there's a judge or a court that is interesting to you, you want to take the initiative and simply apply. You need to submit separate applications for each judge that you want to work for. So it's common if there, let's say you want to work for a criminal judge here in San Francisco, you can look at the list of judges and send separate applications to each of those criminal trial judges, and that's very appropriate. One way to identify some of these judges is to go through our employer directory, and this will just kind of paint a universe for you. This won't necessarily tell you who is looking, but it will give you some ideas. So if you go to this, again, practice areas and clinics, click on Judicial Externship, and you'll end up getting a list of the different courts who have worked with us in the past. So you can see there's a long list of various courts. And so you can see some of these are not in San Francisco. We had a student who was from Tennessee, and he arranged an externship in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We've had students work in The Hague. We've had students work in upstate New York. So you're not limited to being here, although obviously you may have some other logistical concerns with the law school if you are going to be away for a semester, and so those are things we would need to work out. But you'll see when you click on one of these listings, we'll give you basic contact information for the court, the address, the judges, and then some other tips on how to research opportunities at that particular location. One new resource that we have developed to help you with this process is we have developed a list of judges. Oops, sorry about that. A list of judges who routinely hire students. It's a limited list, so the universe is much more expansive. For example, we don't have the judge in Tennessee, sorry. Okay, so if you go to our resource library and you go to the document library, you can just type in the keyword section judicial and you'll see a list of resources. And one of them is this judges list, judicial externships, and you'll see it was updated fall 2013. When you open it up, this is what it will look like. It's simply a spreadsheet of judges in the area. You'll notice we put a little disclaimer at the top telling you this is a list of judges. We have not called each of these judges to see if they're hiring. We just know these are judges who exist and their contact information. There may be others out there, so don't rely on this exclusively, but it will give you a place to start. And we've color-coded the list by court. So you'll see these first judges in this yellow section are all from San Francisco Superior Court. As Teresa mentioned, the judges there tend to specialize. So if you look here, you'll see the different responsibility that they happen to have right now. So that might be helpful as you're figuring out who you want to apply to. But then you'll see, ooh, the color changes. So this darker yellow, these are the California Court of Appeals for the First District, which is located here in San Francisco. We have the California Supreme Court, the Bankruptcy Court, District Court, and you'll scroll through and you see different courts and different judges, and so you can use the colors as a way to identify where one court on the list ends and another one begins. And so you would submit applications directly to these various judges and justices. For this district court, they have developed their own process for accepting applications. So if you want to work for a federal trial level judge, either a magistrate judge or an Article III U.S. District Judge, here in the Northern District, you need to go to their website. And so their web address is here, cand.uscourts.gov. And you'll click on the left side where it says Career Opportunities. And then you'll see here, there's something applying for judicial externships. And the court provides information here about externships, when they offer them, if there are any restrictions on when you can apply. There's also a pro se department at the court, so if you have an interest in habeas corpus petitions, cases involving typically prisoners, there's a department that handles those cases exclusively, and that's quite interesting work as well. To apply for a position with the Northern District, you have to open their online application. And you'll see it's kind of this clunky, old school sort of form, and you simply fill out the form. And then you end up doing a lot of copying and pasting from your resume into this form. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll find a list of all the judges, and you really want to pay attention here. So they've organized it by the location of the courthouse, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, and then within that the Article 3 judges and the magistrates. And then they'll give you some notes here. So some judges prefer this electronic form, others prefer paper. So if it's a judge who prefers paper, you can check off the box here, but you should plan to follow up with that judge with, mail them through US mail or drop it off at the court, a paper application for that particular judge. If a judge isn't hiring, they'll indicate that here. So this is really helpful. You don't want to waste your time applying to a judge who is not currently accepting extern applications. So you can see for Oakland, San Jose, it's all in here. And then you click off all the ones that you're interested in. You type in whatever little code they want you to type in and hit send application. What will happen after you submit your application to the court is that if they're interested in talking with you, they'll invite you in for an interview. Sometimes the judges with this form might ask you to follow up with additional documents since you can't really attach things to this form. So they might initially be interested, but they'll want to see your references or a writing sample or transcript, something like that. And then they would invite you in for an interview. At the interview, if it's at the district court, you would meet with the law clerks, who are the attorneys who would supervise you. They might also introduce you to the judge, and it's common for them to make a decision fairly quickly. And sometimes they will offer the job on the spot. Other times, they'll call you within a week and let you know whether you have the position. If a judge offers you an opportunity to work with that judge, the protocol usually is to accept the position and to withdraw your applications from all the other judges where you have submitted them. It's not great form to say, well, I like you, judge, but I'm going to shop around for a better offer. It's not considered respectful, and any of these opportunities will be wonderful. You'll have a great learning experience, and so we would encourage you, if the opportunity is extended to you, that you should grab it with great enthusiasm and withdraw your applications anywhere else. Okay, so here the Ninth Circuit's website is here as well. In that long spreadsheet I showed you, we listed some of the Ninth Circuit judges. We listed primarily just the ones who have their chambers here in San Francisco. As you know, the Ninth Circuit is geographically vast, and most of the judges will have their chambers in their home state or home location. So for most of you, San Francisco is really the only viable option. We did include on the list our alumna Morgan Kristen, who is a Ninth Circuit judge up in Alaska. So if you have ties to Alaska, would like to spend a semester up in Alaska, we would encourage you to apply to her, and certainly any other Ninth Circuit judge. So if you're from another state, from the western part of the country, certainly apply for those judges, and we can help you find that contact information. For state courts, we've only listed San Francisco and possibly Alameda, I don't remember, in that spreadsheet. But you can go to the websites of each of the superior courts and find a list of all of their judges, what kinds of cases those judges are hearing, what the address is, because most counties have their judges scattered in a variety of courthouses, so you want to make sure you're sending it to the right judge in the right location. So you want to do that research, and we can show you how to do that if you're having trouble finding it. So those are the documents you need to prepare. Do not wait, work on this right away. Make sure I look at your cover letter and your resume. It has to be perfect. Judges expect your writing to be perfect. You know, if you are writing an opinion on behalf of a judge, the judge cannot present an opinion to the parties that has typos, that has grammatical errors, that's sloppy. You know, it has to be perfect. So they're expecting you to do, you know, court level work when you're there. They will expect, if you are producing a one-page resume, a one-page cover letter, that you have the ability to do it in a way that is error-free. So you need to take the time to get it right now. And so that's one reason you want to enlist our aid, to make sure everything looks perfect. So I do want you to personalize your applications, and so this is a little bit tricky because remember, you know, the judges are impartial. So you can say, well, dear judge, I want to work for you because you were appointed by President so-and-so, and I was a supporter of that president, so I assume you and I share the same, you know, philosophical and political beliefs. That would be bad, because a judge is evaluating the merits of the cases before him or her without, you know, bias or predisposition. Now certainly you could write to a judge, maybe you notice they went to GGU, maybe they went to your undergraduate school, maybe their career took a particular path and that's a path you would like your career to follow, and so that could be a reason to want to work for them. Dear Judge Chen, I know you were an ACLU attorney, that's an organization I am very interested in, and you know, that's what brought me to your attention, and that's why I want to work for you. So you could focus on more concrete elements in their professional path as to why you might want to work with them. So you do want to try to tailor it. You can do a lot of research. We have profiles on just about all the judges in California. So you can read those profiles. That will give you a sense of their background. Teresa is also a great resource in that regard because she actually writes many of those profiles for the recorder and has met 50 plus
80.
How many?
80.
80 judges in the past couple of years. She's interviewed them. So she's a wonderful resource on the particular quirks and interests and backgrounds of the different judges in the area. And so she could be a wonderful resource in helping you figure out who might be a good fit or a good mentor for you. You can use Lexis and Westlaw. So I would say read, you know, you can look things up on the Chronicle about the judge, but you're not going to see a ton. But you might see a lot in the legal press. So take a look in the Recorder and the Daily Journal, and you can use Lexis and Westlaw to get access to that to find out, have these judges presided over interesting cases, notorious cases, high-profile cases? When that judge was appointed or elected, was it controversial? What were people saying about that person? Did that judge win an award? Did that, you know, get some of that other stuff? And that will give you more fodder for your cover letter and for your interview to show to that judge or to that judge's staff, you want to work for this judge in this courtroom. And that's really helpful to be able to personalize that. So we're here to help with this process. I'm happy to meet with you individually, look at your materials. So to meet with me, simply call LCS and schedule an appointment, and we can look at those things together. I'd recommend meeting first before you start emailing me lots of stuff, just so we can sort of get a baseline and I know what you're looking for and what you're aiming towards, and we might review your materials together in person first. And then if you do subsequent drafts and polish, that's a little bit easier back and forth by email. I've also included Teresa's information here. She's an adjunct professor, so she's on campus on
Thursdays.
Mm-hmm. And so you can contact her and make an appointment to meet with her during her office hours here on campus. And she too can look at your materials and help you sort of figure out where might you want to apply or what you want to emphasize in your letter. I encourage you also to talk to former externs. So you can look on LCS Online where we have the employment evaluations and take a look at evaluations written by former externs, and if you like what those students say about that particular placement, often the student will give you their email address or contact information. You can chat with them about the position, and then that might be something nice to put in your letter. After talking to your former extern, John Smith, I'm even more interested in the opportunity to work for you, and that can be very compelling to the judge as well. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions that you have for either of us.
I'll ask Teresa, how often, if you're earning units, how often do you come to Golden Gate for classes?
It's the same whether you take it for 2 units or you take it to
to 13, which would be the maximum. So the way it's structured this semester is we've done a boot camp style, the way it's been done in the past as well, where we have a full day seminar before the semester begins, anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, where we get together. And then we have 2 meetings this semester, one mid-semester and one at the end. Next semester, I'm looking to do it at a more regular meeting time. So we probably would have 10 to 12 classroom hours, probably over the first half of the semester. So maybe meeting every other week for 2 hours at a time to get all the externs to get their feet under them. So it's the same, whether 2 hours or maximum 13.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? I would just say, having worked with judicial externs for many, many, many years, it's a great opportunity. I love seeing the students when they come in for that boot camp session. They're nervous. What can I do this? What do I call the judge? Am I up for the task? And working with them over the course of the semester, and then seeing them at the end, and to see the confidence level in our students go like that. And it's based on the fact that they are developing their writing and their research skills all the way through. They've been mentored by judges and attorneys all the way through. They're seeing attorneys in the courtroom day after day after day. And so by the end of that experience, they're so much more polished and so much more confident. And it's just amazing, the growth that happens in that one semester. Almost universally, those students will say that this is the best experience they had in law school. So I do encourage you to seek it out, whether it's for next semester or for next summer. If you are thinking about one for next summer, I would encourage you to actually apply this semester. What will tend to happen is a lot of 1Ls will be seeking volunteer positions with the court for next summer. It's become very common for that to happen, and so you're getting 1Ls from all around the country, from top law schools, lots of different law schools who want to be in San Francisco for the summer. And it becomes very challenging to get the judge's attention. But those 1Ls can't apply for those positions until next semester. So the federal court actually has a rule that they can't apply until they have their fall grades. So if you are not a 1L, if you're a 2L or 3L, and you're thinking about next summer, you might want to apply this fall to get your application in front of the judges before they get inundated with all those 1L applications. So those are, we can talk about some of those tactics, when to apply, how to apply, what positions to seek out, but you do want to be savvy about the timing.
I'm going to ask another question. You gave a lot of information. In regards to the 13 units, is that a grand total for your entire time at Golden Gate?
All your kind of experiential learning, so that would be on-campus clinics, any other externships. I'm not sure what else falls into that basket, but I think it's sort of non-classroom or more of these experiential courses. So you do also want to budget those hours if you are in your second year and you want to do a judicial externship, but you have, in addition, you want to do the criminal litigation externship, or you want to work in the environmental law and justice clinic. You do want to reserve some of those units for those other experiences. Does that get you?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, it answers the question.
And we can help with that, and then also the folks in Law Student Services, Jamie Nye and Dean Sampat, as they're helping you with your academic planning, that can become part of that conversation as well. How do you distribute those hours, knowing what your academic goals are?